Kelly here with the Siren and the Pirate handmade jewelry, and today I'm teaching you how to make a Viking knit bracelet. Thank you YouTube user Janet and Melissa Wise for requesting this. I know you requested it last month and I'm just now getting to it, but better late than never, and I really hope you enjoy it.
If so, leave me a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more videos.
So to begin, you're going to need a few things. There is a specific tool out there called the Lazee Dazee, which is exactly for making Viking knit weaves. However, I do not own one. I use doweling rods, and I'll tell you the reason why I didn't opt to buy the Lazee Dazee. Number one, I didn't want to spend the money on it. And number two, once you figure out how to make the little flower top to go to start your Viking knit so that you can use a doweling rod, it's so easy to do, and then you are not limited to just using the size of your Lazee Dazee. You can use a Sharpie marker, you can use a small doweling rod, you can use all different sizes if you know how to use this technique. So to start, you're going to want to find some sort of doweling rod. I suggest using a Sharpie marker. I use this one all the time. I've also used stuff like this. You can go to craft stores and you can get all different types and sizes of doweling rods. So you'll need that to start. And I'm going to show you how to make the flower top so you can begin your Viking knit weave. We'll start with that, and I'm going to show you some variations of the Viking knit. We'll do the single knit, we'll do the double, and the triple knit. You will also need a few tools as we go along, and I will just put those down in the description under the supplies list. And today we will be using copper wire. I use 24 gauge copper wire for my projects. You can probably use other gauges of wire. 24 is just mainly what I work with. So without further ado, let's go. All right, so let's begin. And the first thing we'll do is learn how to make this flower top to hold the weave in place. So you'll need your wire. And what I'll do is I'll put two fingers together and hold this. I kind of keep them apart so that the wire doesn't taper and the loops get smaller as I go down my finger. And today we're going to use 5 loops. That's fairly common for number of loops for me to use. So I'll go around and count this first one as 1. So 1, 2, I'm going to try my best to get them the same size. 3, 4, and 5. I'll cut it. Go ahead and carefully slide your fingers out, hold the bottom side, and then gather all of these and just twist them around. So now you can hold on to this part, and when you pull your finger out, you can open up this side into something that looks like a little flower. Just like that. Now, once I have this part, I go through and I squeeze all the petals so that they're elongated. And the reason I do this is so that my loops, as I'm weaving, aren't too close together. It's much easier to do the weave when your loops are spaced out evenly, so I just feel like this helps a bit. Okay, so then we have that. Start to bend them down. And then I'll take my dowel or the marker and place it over the marker. Now we're ready to start the weave. To start the weave, you're going to not be able to work off of the spool. So we'll grab, I'm gonna say about like a wingspan. Let's just do a 1-arm wingspan because I think on camera it's gonna be easier. And if you're just starting off, I would suggest starting with less wire. So maybe like half of your wingspan And then I typically, as I get going, I use a lot more wire at a time. You'll be able to find what's manageable for you. So we're gonna pick a loop to start. And coming from the left side, we're gonna go on the back side of the loop and out the front. And then bend this wire down. Kind of grab a hold of it and bring this one across. So the whole time for these first set of loops, my finger is holding on to the flower top, and now I'm securing this wire down with my thumb. And now that's gonna hold everything in place so I can do the rest of my loops. So we have our first loop, and now the second loop is gonna be different. I'm gonna come to the end of the wire, and coming from the right side, go behind the loop and out the front and pull. Until we have another loop. And we'll do the same thing. So go to the end of the wire. From the right side, go behind the loop, through the middle, pull, and I'm being careful as I'm pulling this to kind of guide through, create a nice loop that's not pulling on the other wires, because I want to keep my loops spaced out as evenly as possible. Same thing over here. Just carefully guide these. You won't have to be so careful once you get it started. And then one more. Let's brought us all the way around. So we've done our first row. We're ready to begin the second row of loops. And instead of now going through the top loop, we're going to go behind this one. So just come above this wire, all the way behind the loop. It's not going to come through the center of it, and pull. Guide the wire around into a nice loop. On to the next. So again, we're going behind the loop, and through. If this guy gets in your way, the tail from the beginning, just go in somewhere and make him shorter so he doesn't bother you. All right, now I've jumped ahead and I've done a third row down here. If you wanted to continue with the single weave, this is all you would keep doing the whole way down, and eventually it'll end up looking like this. Now, if you like to do a double weave, which you can tell is going to just make it a little bit more dense, you do want to make sure that you already have a few rows started. So typically I like to have 3 full rows done before I start going into my double weave. So now, instead of going up just 1 row, you're going to go up 2 rows and go behind and do the same thing, creating your loop. So you'll notice that I'm always using my thumb on the previous loop to hold it in place and guide
this loop around, because I don't want to end up pulling and getting this one too tight. The whole time, if you do get your loops too tight, you're really going to have trouble getting your wire behind the previous ones. So I keep some tension in the wire, but a little bit looser is the way I like to go. Just makes everything easier. So I go up 1, 2, and behind, and around. Oops, I went up 3. 1, 2. And around. So we're back to the beginning. And of course, if we wanted to do another double, we'd go up 2. But there's also the triple weave, which I don't use the triple weave so much. Actually, this is the first time that I've really used it. Like, I know how to do it, but I tend to stick with either the double or the single, because for me, it really comes down to how much material that I want to use on each of the pieces. And I just find the double works for what I want. But if you do want to do the triple weave, you come up 1, 2, 3, behind, and around. 1, 2, 3, through, and around, and you just continue with that pattern. So what I want to go over next with you is to teach you how to add more wire once you've run out. And also, if you're working with something that's short, don't worry, you don't have to have a really long stick. I just keep moving it up and working down, and moving it up and working down. So let's add on some more wire. Again, you'll find how much wire that you're capable of working with. Oh, I forgot I'm on camera, so I'm not going to use as much. If you're not using as much at a time, you're just going to end up doing this next step more often is all. Okay, so I always leave a little extra, even though I could do another loop. I like to have extra wire to work with. So just like I began at the very top, I'm going to come in from the left side. This is where we're doing the single loop, so I'm just going to go through 1. So behind the back side, bend this one down, and bring the rest of the wire across. So just like we did at the very top with the flower. Now these 2 wires that are crisscrossed now, I like to use my wide flat nose pliers. Grab a hold of them and twist them. I get a few twists. And then I'll go in, trim that down, and push that down. And now I'm ready to start again. And don't worry about this. Once we draw it at the end, it'll pretty much like push down into the middle of your bracelet or of the weave, and you won't notice it. So I don't have any problems with those at the end. And then you're ready to go. Another thing I wanted to mention too is don't worry what your weave looks like in this stage. So like on this one, I'm not gonna feel bad about getting these 2 rows real close together and this one further apart, because once we draw it through the draw plate, everything's gonna smooth out. So if you have some that aren't, just perfect, don't worry about all those imperfections are gonna go away. Now we are ready to draw the Viking knits through the draw plate. This is mine. I got it off of Amazon. I really like this one, but of course you can even make your own. Plenty of options there. And let's start with the single knit, and each of these are about 4 inches in length, the single, the double, and the triple. I'm going to draw them all down to the same amount, maybe 5/16 or 1/4, so that you can tell how much more length each of them gets as they condense and lengthen out. So have a pair of pliers ready on hand, and we're going to squish the end of the flower so we can get it through the draw plate. So just start up on one of the larger ones and pull it through. And then work your way down smaller and smaller. Alright, so we've gone down to 1/4, and we started with 4 inches, and we've about doubled it and got 8 inches of weave out of that. So let's try. I'll go ahead and take the double and the triple weave down to the same amount. And with the double weave, we started with 4 inches, and we've got about a little over 6.5 inches of weave after it's drawn. And with the triple, we're just under 6.5 inches after it's drawn. So here's an up-close look at all of them after they've been drawn down to 1/4, the single, the double, and the triple. So this piece I've done as a double knit, and it's been drawn down to about 732. And the first thing I'm going to do is size this to fit about an 8-inch wrist. So the end components that we're going to make are going to be approximately 2 inches. So if I want to make an 8-inch bracelet, I'm going to cut the knit at about 6 inches. And it's okay to cut this. Just come in here, find a good spot. Nothing's gonna come unraveled when you do this. Obviously, these cutters are a little dull. Bear with me as I chop this off. All right, so what I do next is I just go in and I clean up the end. Make sure all the parts are pulled out that are loose. Okay, so we have about 6 inches to work with for the knit. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to make the end caps. I feel like getting these right are really crucial in making your Viking knit looking really good, because it finishes everything off so it looks nice, it looks clean, it's the style you want. So I'll teach you how to make your own end caps. You can buy these. You just have to know what the diameter of your pieces so you can fit the end cap properly. So I'm going to be using these bail making pliers, and this has been a lot of trial and error for me. So if I'm not sure what size to use, I'll make a few loops around one and I'll see if I can fit it in. You want these end caps to be fairly snug. If they're too big, they're going to slide around and they're not going to stay on the end. Yes, you can pinch the bottom part down a little bit, but I try not to pinch it in too much to hold it in place, because I feel like it can, aesthetically, it doesn't always look so good if the ends are pinched. So trial and error. I've found that today with this size, I'm going to be using the 1, 2, 3, 4th size down from the smallest, and we're going to be using 16 gauge wire for this. So what I'll do is I'll work right off the spool. I go in first and I use the flush side of my cutters to cleanly cut the end of that. You can even go in and file it if you like here. And then, what do we say? 1, 2, 3, 4th one down. Grab that, and then just start coiling. This is how you would make jump rings eventually too. We're going to be showing you that next. So keep it snug, keep it coming around, and you're going to decide how large your end cap is going to be. You can always trim some off, so I suggest always making it a little bit bigger than you need, and then you can go and snip off what you don't want. And then come in again and use the flush side of the cutters. Cut that away. And voila, you have an end cap. Pretty easy. And so then you go ahead and make another one just the same. Sorry. Okay, next thing, securing these to the ends. So for this style of Viking knit, I'm going to continue using the 16 gauge wire. On some of my other styles, I use 20 gauge, which is always going to be a little bit easier to work with. But for the look I'm going for, this is going to be a man's bracelet. So I like everything to look a little bit thicker and chunkier and have more of a masculine look to it. So let's see. I never measure this out. I kind of eyeball it, but let's go ahead and use 4 inches to start. We definitely won't need all of it, but I'll cut 2 of those. About the same. All right, now use your either needle nose or round nose pliers. Sorry, let's clear the area here. And now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna start on this end. This is the side I cut. We're gonna go in and we're gonna gather up as many loops as possible at the end. So if you just kind of push it through. If I put a wire through there, it's gonna be pretty secure. So I just kind of smash all these down around it. I've got an opening now for that piece of wire. See that? So now I'll take the 16 gauge wire, put it through. It's nice and secure. Oh, what's going on there? That's all right. And then I'll start to bend it around and make it into a loop to hold it in place. So with the 16 gauge wire, I find that I kind of get it going and then I tilt it down, hold it in place, and then pull the other side up and around. So now I've got, if you can see in there, a loop. bring it around, and then in the center of the circle, just tilt that up. And then this part we're going to trim off. We'll trim it fairly close. The end cap's going to go over the top of it. So there we go. Most of the time what I'll do now, because I don't think that end cap is going to fit over that circle I've made, so I'll go in and start to squeeze the sides of it. And again, if you're using 20 gauge wire, this part's much easier, and I'll even go through it maybe twice with the 20 gauge wire. All right. And now let's see if the end piece fits over the top. There you go. Sometimes you have to smash everything down and then kind of twist it. Twist it on. Okay, there we go. And I like that again because it's nice and snug. It's not falling down the Viking knit. And you want it right up at the top because eventually I'm not going to want to see this portion. So the next thing we'll do, I kind of move that over to the side. And then use my bail making pliers once again, and you can choose how large of a loop you want this next part. So I like to, again, it's a little bit bigger, it's for a man's bracelet, so I'm going to choose the same loop that I did for the end cap and bring it all the way around. So I've got a loop going. And then with the 16 gauge, I'm just going to take it one time around the base. Go in with the cutters, nip it off. And then squeeze everything. Just make sure you've got a nice shape to the loop, and then I'm going to push that end cap up. There we go. So it's just sitting out the top of it. Here, if your end cap was just a little bit big, because sometimes depending on how thin or thick you draw the Viking knit, if the end cap is just slightly bigger, then it's going to fall down. So what I would do is go into the end piece and just kind of crimp it. So I would squeeze that down until the bottom one's really snug against the Viking knit, and then it'll hold it right in place for you. So I'll do the other side, and then I'll bring you back. So both sides are finished now. And let's measure it out, see what we're about. We're almost to 7 inches, and we still have to add on the clasp and a few jump rings. So I'm anticipating it being around 8 inches. So let's make the end piece, and again I'm going to use 16 gauge wire for this. And again, this is another one I eyeball, so let me just give you a measurement here, but it's just so you have something to work off of. That might be a lot, maybe like 7 inches. Let's go with that. So this is the clasp that I use when I'm making a masculine looking bracelet. So I'll take the 7 inches and fold it in half. I'm so bad at getting it exactly 1/2.
Close enough. So you're just going to turn it into a little hairpin here. And I'll use these flat pliers to go in, and we're going to squish it. All the way without killing your fingers. Cool, cool. And then use your bail making pliers again, and I tend to use the second to largest one. And let's see, what is the measurement on that? It's like about 1 inch, I would say, or 2 centimeters from the end. And I'll begin to curl this down. So we've got a nice hook. I'm gonna pull that side in a little bit further. Oh, one thing I did forget that I like to do at the beginning, but you can do it right now, is I'll go to the end and I'll put a little curve on that. It's like a little lip. And that makes it easier when you're going to try to hook it on. All right, now we won't need all of that, so I'm going to go in and trim it. Again, this is kind of something I eyeball. I've made so many of them, I just kind of know where to go. You can always take off more. So if you're thinking you've trimmed off too much, give yourself some more space. So I cut that off, and then I use the second smallest loop here, roll them around, until you've got this hook going. Okay, mine's a little wonky. It's probably because I'm on camera, like looking around the screen. You can go in and to even it out. I think this is one of the worst ones I've ever made. It's okay. We can save it. Not bad. Okay, so we've got the end piece. Now you can either put a jump ring on before. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, depending on the size. And sometimes when you put it in here just like this, if there's not good movement when you're trying to clasp it, putting a jump ring in there can help with that. Actually, and then just go back in and close it up. And now we are just under 8 inches. So the next thing we'll do is, so I could just close it up right there if I needed to, but I always add a few jump rings on the sides. This is nice, especially for me. I want to have my stuff out in the store, and if I'm not there to custom fit something, or if you're selling your stuff online or just never know what size someone's going to want, you put some jump rings on, and then it can fit multiple sizes of wrists. Okay, so we're going to make the jump rings the exact same way that we made our end caps. So you can choose 16 gauge wire. Sometimes I'll even use the 14 gauge wire on these jump rings because I think it looks really cool. So why don't we do that? And with the jump ring, this is another style thing. How big do you want your jump rings? I like to have them on that second size from the largest. So I'll coil it around. If I want to get like maybe 3 jump rings out of it, I'll do 3 or 4 coils. Cool. And then use your flush side, cut that off. Okay. So now, in order to make this into jump rings, I'm going to turn it so that the flush side is going to do the cutting. Oh my gosh, these are so bad. I need a new pair. And I'll even go in because I didn't get that side flush. I grabbed the wrong cutters for today. And then just keep doing that same thing. So come up one more. Cut it off. I know that there's like other specialized tools for doing this. I just don't have them. So we work with what we got. Another jump ring, 2. I always go in and I clean up one of the edges first. And then cut it. All right. So now we have a few jump rings. Let's go ahead and put them on the end. And I forgot my jump ring opener, so we'll just use another pliers. Open it up, put another one on. I've got our jump rings. So let's take a look, see what we've got. It's pretty nice. And this, I guess, could be twisted. It's not sitting exactly how you want it. You can twist the end, or you can put a jump ring on this side. But now you have a bracelet that the smallest it'll go is just below 8 inches, and it'll go up to almost 9 inches in length. So that's pretty good. Will fit most men's wrists. And then what we'll do is patina this, and we'll show you the end product after. All right, here's our finished product. So it's gone through a little patina and polish, and this is how it turned out. I think it looks real nice. All right, thank you again so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, you know what to do. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow me everywhere. All my handles are down in the description below. And if you do happen to follow along with this and you make yourself a Viking knit, jump on to Instagram, follow me at the Siren and the Pirate, and tag me in it. Post your pics. I want to see what you've been able to do.
And that's it for now, guys. Until next time.